Okay, now I'm doing these clips at different times. I've got 10 minutes to spare and I'm having a coffee, so they're done on different laptops, and they might look and sound a little bit different, but the only thing they'll probably have in common is that I'll be holding the camera in my left hand and I can't see the play pause button, so I'm going to look around the camera or move the camera and it will shake around a little bit, so apologies for that. But I said either before or afterwards that this is Dr. Judy Wood, who tells us that that free energy, a directed energy weapon powered by free energy was used to destroy the Twin Towers. She provides no evidence for this whatsoever. Of course, she says we have to rely on empirical evidence, and that empirical evidence basically is seeing is believing. You believe what you see. So you see something and you form an opinion as to how that has happened. Now, in other words, she has no physical evidence whatsoever. She has no evidence whatsoever of a directed energy weapon, and she has no evidence whatsoever of free energy, because free energy doesn't exist. It's rubbish.
And we're very susceptible to those kind of suggestions.
Yeah, the conspiracy theorists are very susceptible to those sort of suggestions from people like you that spruik this bloody rubbish.
Well, y'all don't need props. So we're going to look into where did the towers go? Big question.
The evidence of directed free energy technology on 9/11. Okay. There is no evidence whatsoever of free energy, let alone directed free energy. This is nonsense.
I asked that on day one, but very few others did.
Okay, so she's asked, where did the towers go? She asked that on day one, very few others did. That's because everybody else watched it on TV as it unfolded live. I wonder if she actually shows anywhere the planes being flown into the buildings in this video. But let's continue. I've got a coffee here and I've got some chalky digestives. Let's sit back, relax, and have a laugh.
Empirical evidence is the truth that theory must mimic, not the other way around. Many people start.
Yeah, this is, police regard eyewitnesses as very poor witnesses, usually.
With theories, but you must start with empirical evidence or you're fixing the mess up. Once upon a time there were two towers, and then they went away, and that's about all that was left. Just that little corner of WTC 3. It's a 22-story building. Now you'll learn I have a unique language.
Yeah, it's bullshit. Actually, it's not that unique. It's spoken fluently by most conspiracy theorists, in fact. What she's saying here is, look at these massive buildings and look at this tiny pile of rubble. Now, there's people in the bottom of that picture for scale. These are people here, so pretty big pile of rubble. Also, shot from another angle, you might see the rubble from the other two buildings. Some more rubble here. She's probably picked the picture with the smallest amount of rubble that she can show for effect. Now, something she seems to be overlooking here is that these buildings here, these big buildings, are almost all air. The actual internal volumes of these buildings are all about space. They're offices, people work there, they have to be light and airy, and the internal volumes of these buildings are almost all space. That's why they build these buildings. They're offices, they're workplaces, and they're workspaces, and they're light and they're airy. So people tend to construct these buildings with the structural integrity they need to support the internal volumes of the offices they want to sell or rent. So these are big hollow columns, big hollow box, effectively. These are not solid columns. It's the internal volumes of these buildings is almost all space. It'd be interesting to actually do a calculation and find out what the actual percentage of the internal volume, what percentage of the internal volume is actual space. And I bet it's it's probably well over 90%. So Yeah, this is just twaddle, and if she really wanted to know what happened to these towers and why there's such a small pile of rubble, all she would really have to do is watch Top Gear, because James May gave a demonstration of how strong the Toyota HiLux is by placing the Toyota HiLux on top of a block of flats that was about to be demolished. It was, I think they're 22-storey blocks of flats, those particular ones. And they were demolishing a few of these in a row, and they just controlled demolition. They just dropped them, and they put the Toyota HiLux on top. So I'll show you, I'm not suggesting that 9/11 was controlled demolition. That's just nonsense, of course. I'll show you a clip from Top Gear, and James May showing how tough the Toyota HiLux is. But take note of how small the pile of rubble that they're left with is after they drop this 22-storey block of flats. Okay, over to James May.
What happens next? Play it.
Looks very similar to dust, doesn't it? I'm not suggesting that 9/11 was a controlled explosion, of course. That's complete nonsense. But you can see the similarity between the tall collapsing buildings. These are over 20 stories tall, these blocks.
So, the moment of truth. Will it be buried?
And let's see what remains of one of those huge blocks.
No, there it is.
So there you go. That's what remains. Hang on. That is what remains of one of those tower blocks that was over 20 stories tall. A little pile of rubble with a car on top. And as you saw, they collapsed. Okay, they were done with controlled demolition, but that's got really not much to do with the way it was all collapsing and being pulverised and producing the dust clouds. Very, very similar. It's dust, you know, stuff being pulverised as the buildings collapse. And if we just go back just a little bit further. Yeah, there we go. That is a 22-storey block of flats. I'm pretty sure they were 22 stories. I do actually know these blocks. They were in East London in, I can't remember the name of the estate now, but I do know these flats. And that is all that remains of one of them. So to say, where did the towers go? Ridiculous, absolute nonsense. You know, the internal volume is almost all space, so there's no mystery there. So let's go back to Dr. Judy. This is just you know, all she had to do was watch this episode of Top Gear, and she would have had the answer to her question: where did the towers go? That's what happens when tall buildings collapse on themselves. Okay, let's go back to this rather amusing Dr. Judy. Oh, I see Dr. Judy Wood here has a qualification BS. Yes. So yeah, okay. I don't think I'll bother with the rest of this. It's absolute codswallop. Clutching at straws. You know, she's giving her opinion. No evidence whatsoever that any of what she's saying is true. It's just absolute garbage. Put a line through Dr. Judy Wood, not worth listening to. So there you go. That's just a very quick one. I just thought I'd have a very quick look at this, as I've heard this name mentioned once or twice. Ben Emlyn Jones, I know, is a big fan of Dr. Judy Wood, but yeah, it's rubbish. Yeah, don't worry. Don't you know? Don't bother with it. It's not even worth looking at. Okay. Well, I'll catch you next time.